Your casual Monday night matchup, no big deal here. Draymond Green, middle of the third quarter, Warriors find themselves trailing 71-66 after a Draymond turnover. Take a look at Steve Kerr and Draymond getting into it. Heated argument during a timeout. Green would actually get up and leave the bench and miss the final 20 minutes of the game.
Draymond Green just had another blow-up with Steve Kerr on the sidelines. Shouting match, locker room exit, the whole 9 yards. But here's the kicker. This keeps happening, and somehow we're supposed to pretend it's all sunshine and championships. The Warriors are stuck at 500, tensions are boiling over, and questions about Draymond's future just got louder.
You still have this guy, Steph Curry, third quarter Warriors down 5. Step back over Banchero. Nasty.
Rain!
Warriors down 2. Later in the third, Warriors up 2. Gary Payton the second to Curry.
I mean, he's like 20
shimmy
feet.
shake, shimmy shake.
20 feet
Wet,
closer than
baby.
he normally is.
Just over 3 minutes to go in the third. Warriors now up 1. Banchero with the turnover.
Get it.
Curry, Payton, flush it.
Before we break this down, honest question. How many more sideline meltdowns does Draymond get before Golden State actually does something about it? Drop your thoughts below, because this situation is messier than people want to admit.
I gotta suspend Draymond Green if I'm running the Warriors. I don't think I have any other choice in the matter with what happened last night. The Warriors were trying to win their second game in a row. They were playing a team that has really been disappointed in my mind, the Orlando Magic. The Warriors were 2 games under. Forget Butler and Curry and Green and Kerr, and they've been together forever, and Butler was supposed to add some gravitas and a third option. The reality here is that during the game, Draymond Green and Steve Kerr got into it. The video shows that Kerr was leaning into the huddle, and you see him focused on Draymond solely. He's sitting next to Curry on his left, Moody on his right, but he's focused on Draymond. Draymond puts his head in his towel, getting yelled at, and then all of a sudden, he stands up and he walks away.
So let's set the scene. Warriors versus Magic. Golden State wins 120-97, which sounds great until you realize the actual story had nothing to do with the final score. Midway through the third quarter, Draymond Green and Steve Kerr got into a heated exchange on the sidelines. And when I say heated, I mean the kind of argument where body language tells you everything you need to know before you even hear the words. Draymond storms off to the locker room to cool down, eventually comes back to the bench. But here's what matters. He never re-enters the game after that 8-minute mark in the third quarter. Steve Kerr benched him for the rest of the night, and the Warriors went on a massive 41-18 run without him on the floor. Let that sink in for a second. Now, everyone's rushing to say this is just another day in the office for these two. They've won championships together. They've argued before. This is just competitive fire, right? Except we're starting to see a pattern here, and patterns tend to reveal truths people don't want to acknowledge. Let's talk about what actually happened. Steve Kerr called a timeout because the Warriors lost their focus. Fair enough, that's what coaches do. But during that timeout, whatever was said between him and Draymond escalated quickly. Draymond made the decision to leave and head back to the locker room. Not sent back, left on his own. That's an important distinction because it shows Draymond felt the situation was getting out of hand and removed himself.
The nature of the conversation you and Draymond had on the bench in the third quarter before he went to the locker room?
Yeah, we got into it obviously, and you know, I took the time out just because I thought we lost our focus there a little bit, and so we had it out a little bit, and you know, he made his decision to go back to the locker room to cool off, and that's all I'm going to say about it. It's everything is private, and yeah, I got nothing further to add.
In the post-game interview, Steve Kerr kept it diplomatic, Said they had it out, Draymond went back to cool off, and that's all he's saying. Everything's private.
Would you, I mean, he didn't play the last 20 minutes. Would you have gone back to him?
No, he wasn't going back in.
No. Did he, and was that a decision by him or you?
Well, he left. He went back to the locker room. And so we moved forward, and the guys played great. It's a hell of a win, really good second half, and I'm very proud of the team. And yeah, like I said, nothing more to discuss from my end.
Just to clarify, he went to the locker room. He wasn't sent to the locker room.
Right.
Move forward. Classic coach speak when you're trying to keep internal drama from becoming external chaos. But here's what Kerr also said. Draymond wasn't going back in the game. Period. Whether Draymond left or was sent away, the result was the same. He was done for the night.
Draymond, what happened and why did you leave the bench?
Temper spilled over, and I just thought it was best that I get out of there. I don't think there was a situation where it was going to get better. So it was just best to remove myself, that's it.
What caused the argument?
Basketball, it's what we do. We play basketball. It's an emotional game. People lose their emotions sometimes. It happens. It is what it is. We've been at this now for a long time, So sometimes you with people for a long time, there's a level of comfort, and shit happens.
Draymond's post-game comments were equally telling. Said his temper spilled over, thought it was best to remove himself because the situation wasn't going to get better. Called it an emotional game where people lose their emotions sometimes. Then dropped the line about being around people for a long time, creating a level of comfort where this stuff happens. Translation? We've done this dance before. We'll do it again. Deal with it. But should we deal with it? That's the real question nobody wants to ask. Because this isn't just about one argument on one night. This is about a player who's been involved in multiple incidents this season alone. The ejection against the Grizzlies, where he went at Colin Gillespie, the technical fouls, the constant emotional volatility. At what point does competitive fire become a liability the team can't afford? Let's look at the basketball side of this because the numbers don't lie. Going into that game, Draymond was leading the league in turnover percentage. Think about that. Not just high, leading the entire league. And when he left the game, the Warriors went on that monster run. The offense flowed better, shots started falling. Steph Curry went 6 for 6 from the field in the third quarter after Draymond exited. Now, does that mean Draymond's a net negative? Not necessarily. His defensive impact is still real. The Warriors are 3rd in defensive rating, 4th in steals, 8th in assists. A lot of that comes from Draymond's communication, activity, and basketball IQ. He does things that don't show up in the box score. We've heard that phrase a million times with him. And it's true. But here's the uncomfortable reality. At some point, the negatives start outweighing the positives. When your turnover rate is that high and your team goes on a massive run without you, those intangibles become harder to defend. When you're having sideline blowups with your coach in the middle of games, the chemistry you're supposedly providing starts looking questionable.
The relationship between Draymond and Steve Kerr is complicated. These guys have been through everything together. 4 championships, dynasty years, the highs of being unstoppable, and the lows of injury-plagued seasons. Kerr has defended Draymond more than any other coach in the league would. The punching incident with Jordan Poole, the suspension for stomping on Domantas Sabonis. Every time Draymond crosses a line, Kerr's been there, backing him up publicly. But there's a limit to everything. And when you watch that sideline exchange, you have to wonder if we're approaching that limit. Kerr looked frustrated. Not just in the moment frustrated, but deeply tired frustrated. The kind of frustration that comes from dealing with the same issues over and over again. Draymond said in his postgame that none of their previous arguments ever lingered because they kept winning. That's the key phrase right there. Kept winning. Past tense. The Warriors aren't winning at a championship level anymore. They're 15-15, stuck at 500, fighting to stay in the playoff picture as an 8 seed. The cushion that success provides doesn't exist anymore.
When you're winning championships, you can tolerate the personality quirks and emotional outbursts. When you're a mediocre team struggling to find consistency, those same behaviors become problems you can't ignore. The context has changed, but Draymond's approach hasn't. Steve Kerr mentioned in his postgame that their goal coming into the season was a top 4 seed. Right now, they're nowhere close to that. The West is loaded. OKC, Denver, Houston, Memphis, Minnesota, the Lakers. All these teams look better and more stable than Golden State. The Warriors had their hot streak last season that got everyone excited, but this year feels different. This year feels like reality catching up. And reality is that Steph Curry is 36 years old, dealing with ankle issues, carrying an enormous offensive load. Reality is that they lost Klay Thompson, who's now in Dallas trying to find his rhythm on a different team. Reality is that their supporting cast is solid but not elite. And reality is that Draymond Green, at 34 years old, is no longer the player he was during the championship runs. His scoring was never the point, but his defensive versatility and playmaking are declining. The turnovers are up, the efficiency is down, and the emotional volatility, which was always part of the package, is becoming more frequent and more disruptive. So let's address the elephant in the room. Could Draymond get traded? On one hand, it seems impossible. He's a Warriors lifer, first ballot Hall of Famer, 4 rings, the defensive anchor of a dynasty. You don't just trade a guy like that. Steve Kerr himself said they need Draymond, and that's probably true in the sense that their defense falls apart without him. But on the other hand, if you're Golden State's front office, you have to be asking tough questions. Is this team good enough to contend with Draymond? Are the constant emotional incidents worth the diminishing returns on the court? And perhaps most importantly, what's the market for a 34-year-old defensive specialist with turnover issues and a history of volatility? The answer is probably not much of a market. Some team with a young locker room might convince themselves they need his toughness and championship experience. Some coach might think they can handle his personality better than others have. But the reality is that Draymond's value is tied specifically to Golden State. The system, the personnel, the history. Remove him from that context, and you're left with a declining player who comes with significant baggage. Look at what happened with Klay Thompson. Second best shooter of all time, beloved Warriors icon, and he's struggling in Dallas. Not because he suddenly forgot how to shoot, but because fit matters. Context matters. The Warriors system elevated Klay, and without it, he's just another good shooter trying to find his rhythm on a team that isn't quite working. Draymond would face a similar reality. His entire Hall of Fame case is built on what he accomplished in Golden State alongside Steph Curry. His defensive versatility worked because he had elite offensive players around him that allowed him to focus on everything else. His playmaking worked because defenses were terrified of Steph and Klay pulling up from anywhere. Remove those elements and you have a player who doesn't fit cleanly into most systems. The other factor here is that Draymond knows this. His post-game comments about moving forward and everyone wanting to win sounded like someone who understands his situation. He's not getting traded unless something catastrophic happens. Golden State isn't going to blow up what's left of their core over one sideline argument. But the cracks are showing, and those cracks tend to widen over time. The frustration Draymond expressed about being 15-15 is legitimate. Nobody expected this team to be mediocre. The hope was that with a healthy roster and another year of development for their young players, they'd be back in the thick of contention. Instead, they're fighting for playoff positioning and dealing with internal drama. When Draymond said if everyone's okay with being 15-15, then talk to him when they're 41-41, that's a player who sees the writing on the wall. This roster isn't good enough as currently constructed. The championship window has closed, and the emotional investment required to keep fighting for mediocrity is wearing on everyone. Steve Kerr's comment about the team being ready to move forward feels like corporate damage control. Of course he's going to say that publicly, but you could see it in his face during that post-game interview. This isn't a new problem. This is an ongoing issue that keeps resurfacing, and eventually, even the most patient coach reaches a breaking point. The Warriors are at a crossroads. They can convince themselves this is just another bump in the road, another argument between competitive guys who will hash it out and move on. Or they can acknowledge that this team isn't working the way it used to, and continuing down the same path isn't going to produce different results. Draymond's days in Golden State aren't numbered because of one argument. They're numbered because time is undefeated. Players age, dynamics change. What worked in 2017 doesn't work in 2025. The Warriors are clinging to the past while trying to navigate a present that doesn't care about their championship pedigree. Whether this specific incident becomes the breaking point or just another footnote in their complicated relationship remains to be seen. But the pattern is clear. The frustration is real. And pretending everything's fine because they won championships together 6 years ago isn't a sustainable strategy. So Draymond and Kerr will probably patch this up, shake hands, and move forward like nothing happened. They've done it before. But the Warriors are 15-15. The tension is obvious, and this core is running on fumes. At some point, competitive fire stops being an asset and becomes a problem. Hit that like button and subscribe for more basketball reality checks that don't sugarcoat the drama.